All right, so this is part 3 of the videos, and I'm going to answer a question from Shelley. And now Shelley's a beginner, and she wanted to know a few things. She wanted to know how best to start in drawing in watercolour. She's a mixed media painter, and she would like to make a transition into more, I don't know the word because traditional is not the right word, just, you know, into drawn and watercolour images. And what are the best supplies for a basic level? So I would say to you, I could say go into my course, Delicious Paint, which would certainly help you. But in terms of drawing, I would say the best thing you can do is to start having a go at sketching simple shapes. So I personally like starting people on sketching things like fruit and vegetables because they're all easily broken down into basic shapes. And everyone, well, most people have them in the house. So, you know, to go grab an apple and try and draw an apple from different angles is a really great exercise. It sounds a bit boring, but it actually will really help you learn to see. Because especially as adults, when we're coming to drawing later in life and we haven't done it since we were a kid, we've spent all that time in between pretty much using a pencil to write. And so we tend to bring the writing side of things to it. And so you've got to, when you're drawing, try to loosen up, use more of your arm, and don't try to do something perfectly straight up. Like, try and find the line by being loose. Do you know what I mean? Draw it several times and then pick the best lines and darken them up. I do have a couple of other videos here, Shelley, that might help you. I have a couple of painting videos, painting carrots, and a few other things that might help you get started on how to layer colours with watercolour, because that's a huge thing. And also with drawing, you've got to learn to see. Okay, so this is a really tough question, Shelley, because it's such a huge thing, you know. The big things I would say is to be really gentle on yourself, because you have to relearn to see things. Like, we think we do, and we have to basically learn to leave our brain out of it and concentrate on what we're actually seeing. And that's hard. It's really, really hard. So the big tips I would say are, don't be scared to take a digital photo of something with your phone and then print it out and then outline it and then try and draw those outlines, because our brains have trouble seeing outlines, and we have to retrain them to see what the important lines are. Okay, so that's a really good method to learn how to draw better, is to reduce something 3-dimensional down to 2-dimensional in a photo, print it out, actually draw on your printout, and then try and draw those lines. By reducing it down, you'll often do a much better job. Okay, so that's a great way to get started. And then watch some things on YouTube. People are incredibly generous in showing you how they do things. So have a look at those. Often it's easier to see someone do it than to read about it in a book. So by watching other people do it, that could help. And then find a good class where it's someone that you think you could relate to, and give it a go. Like, it's great to actually learn some drawing techniques from someone. Okay? Not the best answer, I know. The materials one is a better thing. I can deal with that a bit easier in this sort of a forum. There is a video of my favourite supplies that you can look at. But also, I'd say, just to get started, what you need is, you need some pencils. Don't use one of these, right? They're too hard on the paper and they never erase properly and they don't give you a nice line. So you want a nice soft pencil. So preferably something like a 6B, a 3B, 4B, something that's going to be nice and soft to use. You just need a decent pencil. But, you know, you can draw with anything. I draw a lot with a biro, just a normal biro, you know, like a pen like that. And then you need a couple of black pens, I think. This is my favourite, absolute favourite, is a Uniball pen. They're a couple of dollars at an office supply store. I love them because they are very waterproof, but you've got to wait a few seconds. But they're really adaptable because if you put it down and then add a bit of water, you get this beautiful smudge, which actually, there was someone else who asked me about that. Who asked me about ink? I can't remember now. Must be on a different page. Someone asked me about ink. I'm sorry, I've forgotten who asked me about the ink. But basically these pens are great because they will give you a beautiful clean line if you let them dry before you add more paint. But also you can make them smudge and it gives you a beautiful shadow type line. They're a fantastic thing. In the States, I think they're called Uniball Vision. I like them, this one, and there's also a finer point one that's really good. So you're going to need a pencil, you'll need a pen, eraser obviously. I would spend money on a good sharpener because you want a nice point on your pencil. You always get a better result there. And some paper. In the last one I talked about just getting some good cartridge paper, which is a good weight. So this is 150 gram. I have no idea what that is in pounds. You'll have to do that conversion yourself if you're not on metric. But that paper's good because it will also take some watercolour. But make sure you get a paper for water media. Okay, and I like a smoother paper because you get brighter colours. Other thing is you'll need some paints. A lot of people go and spend a lot of money on really expensive watercolours to start. My favourite starting thing is one of these. This is a Koh-i-Noor disc. It comes with, it's got two colours, two little, and I do enormous amounts of work with these, and they cost $15 for this set. The colours are beautiful and bright and clear. They mix with each other really, really well. If you have those and you get a good pink, I would get a permanent rose. Winsor & Newton is my favourite there, and I would get Payne's Grey. If you have those colours and this, there's pretty much anything you can paint. Okay, so to get started, don't spend a lot of money on supplies. Make sure you get ones that you like, and make sure you get ones that you're not going to be too precious with. Don't go spending a fortune on really expensive watercolours till you know you're going to like it, and then add the colours as you want them. Sometimes people go and buy a big set and then they don't use them. You know, there's always, in those presets, there's always a couple that you don't use. Okay, so that's a bit jumbled, I think, Shelley, but basically maybe go find a class, have a look at some stuff on YouTube, have a go at a few things, and sort of just be gentle, but all the way through, be really gentle with yourself because it's hard. It doesn't happen in minutes, and a lot of people expect to be doing amazing things really quickly, and it takes time and it takes practice, and the only way it happens is if you make a lot of mistakes. Okay, so you've got to be prepared to make mistakes and not hate yourself for them or hate your work for them, because that's how you learn. So Shelley, I don't know how much that's helped, but hey, I tried. Now the ink, remember, I have no idea. I'll have to find it. I will find it so I can edit in the person's name. So yes, so ink, the Uniballs. They are my favourite pens, okay? They're fantastic, beautiful and water safe. Let them dry for a minute. You will have a bit of trouble with if it's super humid, but otherwise it's great. They work really well, and you can get a nice smudge. If I want to use a pen where there's no smudging at all, I find a micron works really well. Secura microns. The thing I don't like about them is they have the little nib at the end that you can push in, and I go through them a bit too quickly, so I'm not keen on them. A lot of people I know are really into dip pens and fountain pens and all the rest of it, but I tend to keep my supplies pretty lean, so I just use this. This is just a cheap pen, And I use this nib so often it's grafted in there. It cost me a couple of dollars at the art supply store. And I use that, and I use, excuse me, leaning, I use this Art Spectrum ink. I've tried all different brands over the years, and I'll be honest, I've never found a brand, even when they say it's water resistant or it's water fast, I've never found one that is completely water fast. They all will smudge a little bit if the work underneath is wet, or if you get it wet. So I always ink at the end. But you know, I'm not one of those people who's really uptight about ink. I'm not that uptight about my supplies, really. I tend to go for the colours that I like. And like I said, I keep it pretty lean. I do talk about the ink and pens a little bit more on the supplies that I love video. But that's pretty much it. It's that nib. I use that all the time. So between that, those pens, that's it as far as ink goes for me. So let me see what else we've got. Okay, Erin asked, how do I sharpen my lino tools? Okay, Erin, the honest answer is I don't do it because I would possibly slip my wrists while I was doing it or take out someone. I actually got my first lino injury yesterday, which is this. I've never, in all my years of teaching it, in all the years I've done it, I've never once put a lino tool into my own hand. I never even had a kid do it. And yesterday while I was cutting, and I always cut towards my hand, I'm hopeless, Barry the cat jumped up on the table, gave me such a fright, my hand slipped, and I was using a really wide cutter and it actually sliced my finger open so much we thought it might need stitches for a while. So yeah, that wasn't pretty. But no, I don't sharpen them. I have really sharp tools. They're from a company called Feel, P-F-E-I-L, and they're unbelievably sharp. I use them a lot and they haven't needed sharpening yet. I've got a sharpening kit. I haven't used it. And when the time comes, I will happily hand them to my husband and get him to sharpen them, so we don't have to have the ambulance on speed dial. In the past, though, we have a friend who has a lathe. He does a lot of woodwork and metalwork and things, and I've given them to him, and he's done them. And I've also taken tools to the mall, to the knife sharpening place, and they've sharpened them for me. And it only cost me a couple of dollars. So personally, I haven't done it, and I don't find with the good quality tools, they need sharpening that often, and I use mine a lot. So I think the cheaper ones need more sharpening than the more expensive ones. So Erin, there you go. And then what else are we up to? Now Janet asked, when will the lino class be starting? Janet, as soon as I can get it together. It has just been a crazy couple of months here, and it's getting close. So hopefully in the next few weeks, I've got a couple of illustration jobs to get out of the way and I can finish up the filming and the editing. It's largely written, but it's this sort of stuff that takes the time, I'll be honest. So I think it's a couple of weeks away, but then it will be ready to go. Sweet Red Clover asked me, what is the favourite piece of artwork I've ever done? And I would have to say I don't really have a favourite. I love my blog header, the artwork with the teacups. I certainly love that. And I have one of my perfume bottles, which is a daisy bottle. I really love that. And I love the one I'm working on at the moment. The blue urn that I'm lino printing I think it's going to be quite a favourite. But I sort of don't get that attached to one particular painting. The only one, although I've been asked many times if I want to sell it, the original, is the one that is my blog header, and I've never been able to sell it. It's in my studio and I haven't sold it because I do love that. But others, I just don't get that attached to them, which kind of makes me sound a bit awful, I think. And I think, okay, two others. Mo wants to know how long I've been in Australia. We were born here. We spent 4 years well, we didn't spend all year living in Florida, but we would spend the bulk of the year in Florida when Fance was really little. We would spend most of the time there, and that was for Sinus's work. But other than that, we've always lived in Australia. Moved around within here a little bit, but scarily, we now live, probably 10 minutes walk from where I grew up. So in a very roundabout way, we've ended up back exactly where we started. And finally, the final question, I'm just checking I've gotten them all, is from Kate. And Kate wanted to know how you find the courage to teach online when everything's already been taught. And the short answer is, it just scares the bejesus out of you no matter when you do it. And even though I've got a course now that's been running really well and people have enjoyed it and everything else, and even though I've taught for years, it still freaks me out. So I think you've just got to put on your big girl pants and just bloody do it, basically. It's never going to be perfect, so just get in and do it, and trust that people are going to want to learn from you. And that's pretty much it. So look, if you've got other questions, let me know and I'll do another one. But hopefully I've covered everyone. And if I've missed you, I'm sorry. It just means I'm half-assed. It doesn't mean you didn't ask a good question. Actually, that's where the other question was. It was on Instagram. So that's where I'm going to find the ink question, actually. So I will check that out. And I think there was another one on there that I might have missed. All right, I'm going to go check those now.